Hey everyone, so this is our fourth set of notes. It's the Renaissance and the Church. It's going to be a really quick set of notes and everything is highlighted in yellow. If I'm going too fast, just click the pause button and you can catch up at your own pace. Here we go. So the secular movement. Secular is basically the non-religious movement. So when the Middle Ages first start and the Renaissance sort of starts, you have everything sort of being about the church. All the paintings, all the sculptures, all the music was sort of being written for the church. So it's essentially all religious in nature. We talked about Donatello and Raphael and Michelangelo and Donatello, and they all have religiously themed works. But as we go deeper and deeper into the Renaissance, that kind of starts to change. You have more works that are focused on humanity, things that we can see. So that humanism movement that we talked about in our last set of notes, it sort of broadens, right? And we've spoken about this before. The idea of the individual becomes much more popular during this time period. It's not just about the church. It's not just about God or the world or humanity. People care about the individual as well. You start to see some examples of this in Da Vinci's work, where he's drawing intricate paintings of the human body. And so you can sort of see how people are focusing more and more on things they can observe rather than things up in heaven or wherever. There was also a change in literature during the Renaissance. The focus of writings in the Renaissance moved away from religion and returned to the Greek and Roman ideals of nature and beauty. So you start to see grammar, poetry, philosophy, rhetoric, history. People start to care about these books. They start to spread these ideas. And it's really, really difficult to sort of share these ideas for a while because a lot of the books have to be transcribed. They have to be copied by hand. So books were extremely expensive. In order to get your hands on them, you had to be pretty rich to begin with. The first great humanist thinker was Francesco Petrarch, who wrote sonnets, which is a type of poem that focused on love of nature. He wanted people to study more classical work done by the Greeks and Romans and began searching monastery libraries. So because he was part of the church, he was able to start searching these libraries that were part of the Catholic Church in order to find works that focused on some of this humanism themes, some of these humanism themes. Shakespeare was also a famous humanist, and his works were essentially just reboots of ancient Greek works. So you had comedies and tragedies from Greece and Rome that were being slightly updated by Shakespeare and then given out to the English-speaking world. One example would be this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will not see this, but I would be showing a clip of Romeo and Juliet from 1996 with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio. Copyright won't let me do it. Sorry. Hamlet is another example of a work that Shakespeare wrote. The tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, often shortened to Hamlet, is the tragedy by William Shakespeare at an uncertain date between 1599 and 1602. So it's set in Denmark, and the play dramatizes the revenge of Prince Hamlet, where he wreaks upon his uncle, Claudius, who is encouraged by the ghost of Hamlet's father, King Hamlet. Claudius has murdered his own brother and seized the throne and marries his deceased brother's widow. Sound familiar? Basically, this is the story of the Lion King. You have Simba, who is Hamlet, you have Mufasa, who is Hamlet's father, King Hamlet, and you have Claudius, who is Scar. So this story of Hamlet was turned into a Disney movie. Without even knowing it, you've been exposed to these stories. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is when I would normally show the Lion King official trailer. But again, copyright law won't let me do that. Shakespeare's ideas spread around the world a lot faster than they would have at any other time period because of something called the Gutenberg printing press. So the Gutenberg printing press was essentially a gigantic stamp that was created in Germany. Now this stamp had movable type. So what this means is you can move the letters around to change them into something else. So you could take the A and move it over here. You could move the word the and put it over there. So you can move things around. What this allows people to do is to print newspapers easily, to print flyers and pamphlets really easily, but also it made it a lot easier to print books. So now books, such as the Bible, could spread around the world really, really quickly because they could be mass produced. Here's a video about how the Gutenberg printing press actually works. It's surprisingly easy. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, I can't show you this video, but essentially what you're doing is you're taking a giant piece of paper, you're sticking it onto a platform, then you are taking a bunch of type that's arranged sort of like a stamp. You're rolling ink onto that stamp and you're pushing the two together really, really tightly. And then you're going to make like basically a newspaper. The Gutenberg Bible was the first major book printed using movable type. The printing press allowed for the mass manufacture of the Bible. So, because the Bible was easier to spread around the world, Christianity spread around the world. You also saw changes in architecture during the Renaissance. During the Middle Ages, many churches and state buildings used Gothic architecture, this Gothic style. So you see these sharp angles and these spike-like features on top of towers. If you travel throughout Western Europe, you can see a lot of old buildings that have this sort of style. One example in North Carolina is Duke University's chapel, which you can see there on the right above me. That is actually in Durham, North Carolina. You saw architects like Filippo Brunelleschi return to the ideas of arches and columns that were made famous by the Romans and the Greeks. So for a lot of newer buildings, we sort of threw it back to the old styles that the Greeks and the Romans had. If you look at examples like the Lincoln Memorial or the Supreme Court building, the New York Stock Exchange, they have basically copied the ideas that you can see in the Parthenon in ancient Greece. So everything that is old eventually comes back into style. So a lot of Washington, D.C. might look old when in fact most of it is, 200 years old or less. So, like I said, quick set of notes. If you liked it, thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.